morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Shushak. I see some of you here for the first time this morning, so thanks for coming. I'm the grateful pastor at Edges, and we are always glad that you've chosen to be with us on a Sunday morning. I want to start today by just jumping right in. I'd like to tell you about a remarkable story that I've learned. I know you're going to want to Google this story later if you haven't already heard about it. Some of you will get bored and Google it in the middle of worship, and that is okay. Feel free. But there are so many details to the story that have metaphorical significance that I hope you will do that. I can't possibly do it justice in the next few minutes. The story is about the Kwakwakawa indigenous tribes. Have any one of you heard of them before? I didn't think so. No one, I had never heard. This is a collection of indigenous nations that number about 5,500 in British Columbia on Vancouver Island. Pretty large group of folks. Basically, this group, the Kwakwakawa, believe that the wealthiest people are those people who accumulate the most stuff. The wealthiest people are the people who accumulate the most stuff in order to give it all away. So they do this with grand flair in something that they've been doing literally for generations. They do this with grand flair in something that they call a potlatch. Have any of you ever heard of that? Oh, a few of you have. Somebody studied it in school, it looks like. Awesome. All right, so for those of you who aren't the three people who raised their hands, here's a potlatch. A potlatch is essentially this huge party, right, guys? It's a celebration, and the celebration can be for almost anything. It can be at a birth or at a death. It can be a wedding or an engagement. Any reason they can think of to have a party, whatever its reason, a potlatch is the thing that collects the people. Is that something we should pay attention to? Okay, well, could someone read it and make sure we don't need to... Sorry. Okay, so God help whatever is happening in Woodridge, right? Right now. Thank you, amen. Anyway, these folks host a potlatch for any reason, and so they eat, and they dance, and they sing, and then there's always this big speech, and right after the big speech is the main event. The main focal point is when they distribute the gifts. So somebody, the host of the potlatch, has collected animals for food and blankets for shelter, anything that they can collect that they think someone might need. So this is an ongoing practice in this community, and I'd like for you to imagine for a moment the kind of significance it has socially, religiously, and economically. Literally, a potlatch helps change the power structure of the community. So potlatches are always hosted by the person or people who have the most wealth and power in the community. So many people believe that a rich and powerful person is someone who has a lot. But the Kwakwakawa people believe that a rich and powerful person, that the most rich and most powerful person is the one who can give the most away. That's the heart of the potlatch, and it's evening the score with regard to several things. It's evening the score with regard to privilege and dignity and purpose and unity in these communities. So I read this quote by a current elder in the Kwakwakawa community, and I think it will tell you something about the spirit behind potlatch. Elder Alfred says this: when one's heart is glad, he gives away gifts. Our Creator gave it to us to be our way of doing things, to be our way of rejoicing, we who are Kwakwakawa. Everyone on earth is given something. The potlatch was given to us to be our way of expressing joy. So here I'd like to make a hard right turn. When I read that story about these indigenous tribes in Vancouver, it reminded me of you. While we don't gather around a fire and pass out resources like blankets and animals, I get to watch you host Potlatch every single week in so many ways. Sometimes it occurs to me that I have information that we may not have collectively as a community, so I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you about a few of the ways that I watch you host Potlatch every week. One example, just like in Potlatch, is this building. This building is a place every single week where wealth and power are redistributed, and where social, religious, and economic structures are flattening, literally because you give. Some of you look a little confused, so let me explain. Most Friday evenings, when this building would have been dark, there are close to 100 high school students who have intellectual and developmental challenges, and they stream into this building where they experience fun and adventure, where they have the chance to develop friendships, and where they challenge their limitations as they encounter the love and the promises of the one who created them. How many other days of the week do you think they have those possibilities? And on Thursdays, in this building, there's another quiet stream of folks. And what they have in common is that they struggle with addiction, and they need the support of someone else, and so they collect themselves together. And here they walk out of the dark night into the warmth of community, where there's a physical reminder, a group of people who helps them know that they are not alone and that God has not left them without hope. I could tell you about the mothers of preschoolers who I met with last Monday morning, or I could tell you about the Boy Scouts who meet on Monday evenings, or the 2 troops of Girl Scouts that meet on Tuesdays. All collections of humans that are tangible good that mothers and youth and high schoolers with challenges cling on to. Talk about our theme for the year, hold on to what is good. That's what people are doing in this building every single week. And then there are the potlatches that some of us know about because we're here every Sunday together. And we're part of this Edges community, through which we are sometimes the host of the potlatch and sometimes the recipient of the potlatch. And all of us need to be both in life. And we share our resources. We share spiritual resources and emotional resources and practical resources that are God's grace in tangible form. So the dots that I want to connect here, that I'm not positive we've all connected, I want to point out briefly those dots today. You see, we are actually hosting these potlatches I've just spoken about right now because we are part of a church that said this past year, here's some stuff it looks like God wants to do. And somebody is going to get to resource those dreams. Is it us? If it is us, it's going to redistribute our own wealth and power, and that's probably something we could stand to let go of anyway. And if it is us, it'll share what we have with some people who really need it. So now, how much do we together think we could make happen? Basically, that's what a church budget is. It's a way we know how much we can help host Potlatch all year long. Quite literally, anybody in this community who has ever given $1 in the offering boxes that are at the back of our room, quite literally, if you've ever given $1, you have helped host Potlatch. One beautiful characteristic, a beautiful character trait about the church, and by that I mean the capital C church, not just Edges or Blacksburg United Methodist. One beautiful character trait about the church is that it's in the business of potlatch. whether we're pooling our resources for something like hurricane relief, which you've just seen us do literally because we've had so many hurricanes. But you should know that if you're part of the United Methodist Church, there's a whole arm. It's always in our budget. It's called the United Methodist Committee on Relief. And guess what it's always doing? Collecting resources for environmental crisis. And every year, whether we're in crisis or not, our church is giving money so that when we get in crisis, we'll be ahead of it. So these are just snapshot examples of an entire budget in which the goal for every dollar is somebody else who needs it. Churches who think like this are literally changing the power structures in the world. The church is the best political agent I know. Did you hear that? I think the church is the best political agent that we have because it understands the impact of hospitality that becomes justice. Who knew? So yes, the money in a church budget goes to keep the lights on. And yes, the money in a church budget pays for cleaning. And yes, it employs pastors like me who help coordinate the efforts. But everything that is collected, everything literally that is collected has the Potlatch goal of redistributing wealth and power so that everybody has access because all of it belongs to God anyway. So churches have been trying to get this right from the very beginning when Jesus formed a little band of followers and called them the church. So you may remember Paul. We've been studying Paul's letter to the Philippians over the last several weeks together. Well, he wrote a lot of other letters that we collect in the New Testament, and in one to a church that was at Corinth, he said something that was like a broken record for him. But I'd like to share it with you this morning. He reminded them what he knew to be true, and it's a reminder to us as well, because Paul was speaking about Potlatch when he said this. Moreover, God has the power to provide you with every gracious gift in abundance. So just stop and see if you believe that. God has the power to provide you with every gracious gift in abundance, so that always, in every way, you will have all you need yourselves and be able to provide abundantly for every good cause. That would take more than one of us. Potlatch is God's idea. And every year at this time, I have the privilege of inviting you to help host Potlatch for the coming year. And I just want to say that it really is so easy for me to say, want to give it a try? If you haven't been invited or felt invited before, do you want to be invited this year? Seriously, do you want to just estimate how much joy you could stand to have by committing some resource amount that will become what God is doing in the next 12 months? So I feel like that elder whose quote we read earlier, because I know what I see. And I know that I already see that this has become our way of doing things, that you already are givers, that we understand it's how our Creator made us, and we are learning that pooling our resources to give them away to folks who need them is already absolutely having social and religious and economic significance in this community. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that? So, hear this next connecting phrase. If you have financial resources, and many of us do not, so the rest of this sentence is not for you. But if you have financial resources, I'd like to issue you an invitation. And if you don't have financial resources, you have other resources. And the same question applies to you about your other resources. One invitation is for you to join the Potlatch team for the coming year by dreaming and then committing so that we can make definite plans. There are some cards on your table. Don't pick them up right now. That will help you to do that. You don't need them right now because you need to take it home and pray about it. Don't turn them in today. See what the dreams are. See what it is that you get excited about, and then bring them back. Let your own excitement build about how you could be an investor towards some huge stories that God has in the making. And now one final thing. In addition to the budget that we create every year at Blacksburg United Methodist Church, another thing we try to do with faithfulness is just listen to this community for other potlatch opportunities. You heard me say it earlier that when people come, we believe God wants to enlarge our story and enlarge the things that we care about. So, for example, 3 years ago, when we were talking about how we could be better neighbors, there was a teacher sitting right over there at some place in the room. And she suggested that we partner with her elementary school because it was literally 200 yards down the street. So to date, we have not one but 3 ministries at that elementary school. And together, we pool the necessary money to provide Christmas presents for every child who wouldn't get any. And this summer, we pooled camp money so that kids who would have stayed by themselves all day, all summer long, could go to music camp or karate camp or do the kinds of things that other kids get to do. We provided that this summer for those. And every week, we provide a little friend to go and sit at lunch and make an eternal difference on some kid's heart. And we do that so that kids will know. Kids will know. All kids can know that they have value and worth. And so that things like wealth and power get redistributed. So Harding Avenue is a continuing potlatch, and it needs a whole group. And Edges has been the host village for that. And here's the cool thing. This isn't in my notes, but here it is. Since Edges was the pioneer for just that one potlatch, there are 2 other groups at Virginia Tech that have followed Edges' dream. So now there are 3 groups that are hosting potlatch for those children at Harding Avenue Elementary, and it just domino effects. But what if we hadn't started? What if we hadn't learned how to say yes? So Harding Avenue is just one story, but as I said, every time someone joins, we know God wants to expand our collective story. Another story began when Tim and Chris Chittenden, who many of you know, and their 3 boys came to Edges. They had recently returned from several years in the Dominican Republic, where they had given their hearts and everything else to a girls' school called New Hope. And through the prayers and the financial investment of this church, they were able to bring a New Hope girl named Joanna, who we now love, to live with them so that she could have a stable education and a family. At Edges, we've kept contact with the school and with its founder, Joy Reyes, who just so happens to be in the room today. I have no idea what opportunities we may have for partnership with something like New Hope Girls. But here's what I do know. I know that it's my greatest privilege to recognize sacred connections wherever they exist and to invite us as a church to wonder how we might gently expand the potlatch circle. That's what I think my whole job is, connecting people to potlatch. So I want to catch you up to speed this morning by showing you a brief video about New Hope Girls. And then I've asked Joy to bravely come and to share 120 seconds of specific invitation by answering this question. And then we'll just, do you know what a risk it is to just say, we don't know what this is about, we're just going to say it out loud. So here's the question we've asked Joy to answer. What are some outlets for joyful generosity at New Hope? Maybe it's something we're supposed to do together. Would you watch? Just yell if I need to do something different. Okay, don't everybody look upstairs because it makes the people feel nervous. Just look ahead. Think about Potlatch. Don't worry. Look, here it comes.
In 2004 with our then 2 children, ages 2 and 4. Really just planned to stay for 1 year, and we wanted to see what God was up to. It was just during that time that God started to open our eyes and challenging us to build something that would be eternal. New Hope started in 2011. Something that had grown in our hearts over time. And we started thinking that what we were going to begin with was a girls' school, a way to hold on to our girls and pour into them through the turbulent times of adolescence, where they're so vulnerable. But it was before we ever had a girl in a classroom, we brought girls in to live with us. We started with nothing. I mean, we had a dirt floor and a homemade ladder and an outhouse, but we just felt like that was what God was calling us to do, and we would have done it in the mud. And we did it in the mud. I remember feeling so challenged and thinking, what in the world have I got myself into? And it was in those moments that God would show himself big. Like, just don't forget who you are and don't forget who I am. And it has just been such an amazing journey from the dirt floor to where we are today. Every step of it is a miracle. It's just awesome. God had this place where we currently are set apart for us, where we can provide the home that you'd want to provide for your own daughter. It's like the beautiful bedrooms and their own beds and running water and access to good electricity, and to have neighbors and an environment that is safe without all the chaos. In our current location, we have 7 bedrooms, 4 on top. And those are where our girls who are going to be in long-time residential care are living. And the 2 down below are for intake. You know, when girls come in, they're raw and rough and sometimes unhealthy, and that just provides a time for us to help them process. We are in the process of putting up classrooms, so the girls will actually be able to put their backpacks on and go to school, even if it's just to the other side of the property.
Que está bien, que no le pase nada malo. Bendice a doña Saita. Gracias, Señor, a su nieta. Que si está mala que tú la sanes, Señor, a cada hermana de la chica.
So the workshop was created really as our arm of prevention, working with moms who are vulnerable and providing for them a way to provide for their kids with dignity. So this is a way where they don't have to be in a bad relationship, they don't have to be on the street, they don't have to work a job that doesn't bring honor to their home, and they can keep their girls, they can keep their kids. We just really felt God stir our hearts about, you know, where are you building your treasure? We just saw this great need for refuge, and God just multiplied our ability to serve. And we know that this is just the beginning. right. It is a big difference. Well, that's what we do at New Hope. We hope and dream for girls that don't know how to hope and dream. And we walk into the very pit of hell and pull them out of the mouths of lions. And it is messy. And you just simply can't do it without getting some of it on you. I had the opportunity this week to sit with the second grader and have lunch. And I held her hands, and I told her the story of David in the lion's den. She didn't know this story. And I told her how he prayed and he fasted, and then God did the impossible thing of closing the mouths of the lions. And I told her that I was going to the lion's den for her, and that I was going to face the lions, and that if I didn't come out alive, our God was still good, and that he had already won. And I just want you to know that the smiles and the dance and the singing that you see in that video is real. And every single one is a real miracle. We are walking on holy ground. God's heart is for the widow and the orphan and the oppressed and the exploited. And it is an honor and a privilege to be a part of it. But we're not in this alone. We're in this together. We're family. And God chooses us to be his heartbeat on this earth. He chooses you. And so I just want to invite you all today to pray a risky, scary prayer. God, what do you want me to do about this? You know, I can give you some ideas of what I think New Hope needs, but his ideas are so much bigger than mine that I want to challenge you to ask him. But the biggest and the baddest battles that we fight are really fought and won in the prayer closet. So I invite you to commit to pray. And while we have a new facility with space for 20, we have a budget for 6. So if you are in a position to help financially, that would be amazing. And every bag that is sown is prayed and cried over and sent out as anointed cloths. And so I invite you to buy bags and share the story with your friends and sell them to everyone you know, because it's so much more than a bag. This is empowering women and supporting a safe house. So we're going to be at Annie Kay's today from 2 to 5. And if that's something that speaks to you, come join us there. They're going to continue to sell our bags in your community, which is amazing. But in addition to that, I need help. I'm like the only one that even speaks English in our organization. So that means there's a lot of stuff that I have to do, and I can't do it alone. So pray about coming alongside, doing an internship, or maybe if it's not you, you know the person that might speak to. I'm here. I'm going to be outside with Kelly, and if you want to know more about New Hope or hear more about what we do, I'd love to visit with you. But it's so awesome to be in his family today. I love you. Thank you for inviting me.